Guys, welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today is going to be a fun episode and fun show. Um, I'm going to be interviewing Blake Cannon, who I have a long history with Blake Cannon. Going back, he's a professional golfer, good friend of mine, loves hunting, loves fishing. We've gone on a lot of adventures together. Long story short, Blake was I called him my assistant for about a year, and he would say he was the boss for about a year because he basically ran my life, which was great. And we 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 were approached by a friend of ours now who had seen all of the field judging and all of the articles that I'd written over the years and really wanted to start and do a field judging app. And it kind of hit me at a perfect time where I had been thinking about some way to convert a lot of the articles that I had written over the last 25 years and get it more into a digital age. And long story short, as Blake was working with me and for me, I knew that Blake was the perfect fit for this app. And this app that we're about to show you, the HornScore app, and about to demonstrate, this app wouldn't be where it is if Blake wouldn't have been involved. So I give Blake a ton of credit. From everything from an administrative to a friend to, pulling stuff out of my brain, telling me I'm stupid at times, telling me I'm stubborn, and saying, I know you want it this way, but Jay, we need to do it this way. Anyway, without further ado, guys, Blake Cannon, great guy, just a master with technology, and he's really done an unbelievable job with this app. He is, a jack of all trades. He's the COO, CEO. He's the administrator. He basically runs this app. He's designed this app, and I'm happy to have you on, Blake, and I can't wait to tell the listeners who have been loyal to this podcast about this app because it's been a long time coming. But with that, Blake, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jay. It's funny, this is full circle because how we got to know each other is because of your podcast. Because I'm a Coos nut too, so I started listening to a bunch of Coos podcasts, and then we started talking and became friends from there. So it's a full circle moment now, getting on the podcast for this. So
When I first was introduced to Blake, I saw on his Instagram that he was a golfer and a great collegiate golfer and turned professional. And I remember him, this was years ago, but he said, I was listening to your podcast and I won the New Mexico State Open.
yeah,
Listening to your podcast and listening to your episodes and trying to keep my mind a little bit off golf, and we've been friends ever since. This app we've been working on it about 15 months, and it's been a lot of work for both you and I. You've worked on this tirelessly for 15 months, and I've definitely done my share, but I think you've double timed me. It's kind of fun to be able to introduce this to people, but from my perspective, and then I'm going to kind of go into the interview role and kind of interview you because I think that will be a better flow for the podcast. But I think we've created a product that works for beginners, intermediates, and experts. I think there's a lot of features that you can really dive into if you really want to get complex and you really want to break these animals down. And I think there's some features and some ways to do it where it's pretty simple and you keep it pretty simple. But I'm proud of the product that we've created. But I also know behind the scenes the product that we're looking at right here that we already have second iterations and bunch of ideas going for things to improve the app. So it's kind of exciting. And let's just start from the beginning. What is the HornScore app, Blake?
yeah, it should be a simple question, but it's not, right? I mean, on its face, the way we've been explaining it to people is it's a field judging and scoring app, but in reality, it's much more than that. It's a hunter community. It's a future historical database that the value hasn't necessarily been realized yet. And that's just because it's new. I'm gonna get that refreshed real quick. I mean, If I could define it in one word, I would say it's a community first. We're trying to build a community, build a place for people to interact and share, to educate, and to work with each other. Yes, we've put in some awesome tools and resources to make you better at field judging and to make scoring simpler. Having said that, our long-term objective is not for it just to be a tool. We want it to be a community where hunters can share. We've put a ton of features in, from sharing to public scores, and there's tons of tools in there too to make you a lot better. The one thing that that's one component, would be the community side. The other side is, and you kind of hit on this, we wanted, no matter your skill level, whether you've never hunted mule deer or you've been hunting them for 25 years or guiding them professionally, we wanted to make sure this app had resources and tools that are going to provide value to you and make you better at what you do. And I feel like we've done a pretty good job of that. Like you said, we're always going to be developing and innovating and trying to improve upon it. But this thing is so feature rich with so many tools that, I mean, we joke about it all the time, Jay. When I try and do a tutorial video on this thing, I get through 45 minutes and it's like, well, I still left stuff out. So, just on its face, there's a lot to it. And it's because we really tried hard to think about all these different use cases and add all these little features that were previously headaches. But the one thing I would point out to people is, you and I, the reason we've worked so well together is you have 25, 30 plus years of doing this and doing it at a very high level. I have a much shorter time horizon. Obviously, I'm passionate about field judging, especially particular species, but I don't have the background history that you do. So it allowed us to come in with kind of two different perspectives. Me being more of the still trying to absorb as much information as I can because I haven't learned it all yet. And it allowed us to really attack it from two perspectives of, how do you provide value to a guy like Jay who maybe already has all the information, and the value is being quicker, being more efficient, being more accurate with your local data, versus also still that guy who's maybe going on his first hunt and still trying to learn everything from start to finish to where it's easy for him. Because one of my objectives, selfishly or personally, when I was coming into this, let's take the barrier for entry of how much you need to know. Let's shrink that down. Let's make it to where within a couple of hours you can feel like you can go out and be relatively proficient, no matter the species that you want to chase. And that dives into a whole nother component of the app, which is, there's a lot of species on this app, and it's an ever-growing list as well. So pretty good odds if you hunt North America, anything with antlers or horns, and we have something for you that you're going to value from. So.
Yeah, and as we started diving into it, just new animals would come up, and we're like, yeah, we got to have that. We got to have that. We got to have that. And so, we certainly feel like there's some animals that are going to be more of the core animals and the most popular probably, and they probably fall in line, if you were to do a poll across the U.S. of the most popular big game animals, with your whitetail, your mule deer, your elk, your sheep, and those kind of things. But we tried to get specific with each animal, and tried to dive into the weeds to give tips and tactics and species specific on good guides. So there's great guides, great anatomical charts, and something that you didn't mention. You talked about the community. When we were talking about building this app, very quickly we realized that we needed to be able to share very easily with your hunting buddies. And so we made that a priority from the beginning, to be able to, if Blake, if I'm looking at a buck, to be able to send to you, and be able to send to Dar and Phil and whoever we need to send to within our group. And then once we started talking about, that aspect of wanting to share, then it became, well, we really also need a public aspect. We need a place where people can post, publicly their animals, and then it got into the data. We want to have a huge database of, not only measurements of animals, pictures of animals, videos of animals, but then the anatomicals. And then we dove into how, it's so different anatomically. A whitetail deer in Iowa compared to a whitetail deer in Florida are two totally different things, or an Arizona strip mule deer is totally different than a southern Arizona, desert deer, or western Arizona desert deer. So, that's part of the complexity, but I think that's what gives the app some real legs underneath it, and I think we'll be able to show people here some of the features. Who made the app, Blake?
Who made the app is You, myself, and our third partner. So all of us extremely passionate hunters, extremely passionate about field judging. Which brings me to another, brief thought I want to share, which is one way I could sum up this app is, for your listeners, you've been sharing a lot of information, a lot of education through a lot of different mediums regarding field judging for a lot of years, and it's incredible. And you were one of the few people out there who was really pushing out a lot of information that would help people. But what I always found, and I'm just gonna, look at myself, right? I'm obsessed with Coues deer. I have been for a long time. So I would always pick your brain on Coues deer. And for a long time, it took me way longer than I would have liked to take all that information and actually apply it in the field, because you have to remember or be writing all this stuff down. You have to be adding all this math up. It was hard to apply. And so what this app does, and like this is one of the guarantees that I would make to people, is if you're willing to go on and read through the guide, spend a little bit of time figuring out how the app works, you can jump leaps and bounds, and you can really, really speed up your learning curve by utilizing the app. It's one of the best benefits. Like if you want to field judge more accurately, we've provided all the tools and resources because this app came from your brain. A lot of these feature sets, yes, they've been refined by all three of us, but a lot of the general concepts and methods are the ones that, and it's not necessarily that like you invented them, right? You learned them from some of the best hunters and field
That's right.
judges, and you took what you learned from them and you applied it. And that's how everybody learns anything. You learn from a bunch of different people, but leaning on your expertise is really what, built the methods behind this app. And the one thing I always go back to is you cannot, I don't care if you're hunting mule deer, elk, coos deer, whitetail, with any accuracy, you can't just look at an animal and say that animal's 360. I mean, we see it all the time. Air judging is not reliable. You have to learn how to break the animal down measurement by measurement. And we've made that at least a heck of a lot simpler than it used to be, right? It's still a skill. It's still something you have to learn and develop, just like anything in hunting that's worth doing. It's a skill that you develop, but we've really, really shrunk the learning curve with this app because we've taken your methods and we've essentially modernized them and simplified them.
Let's go over a couple simple questions that I have here. Which phones does this work with?
So it works with any phone you have. iPhone is certainly right now, iPhone is completely developed. It's functional. We're having no problems. Android, we're very close on. It is still available to download in the Google Play Store. But we're probably a week or two. But I mean, within a week or two, any phone that you have, if it's an Android or iPhone, it will work and you'll be able to download it in your respective app store.
Okay. Can you use it with no phone service? In other words, does the app work with no service out in the field?
Absolutely. So everything on the app, minus your public scores feature, your sharing feature, because those obviously require connectivity, the app will work. Any species, any video, any guide is downloadable for offline use. Even the simple things like how to score an animal once you've harvested it. If you want to go download that video to use offline, you can use that, and then all the tools are automatically. What you're downloading for offline use is images and videos, but the entire app has an offline mode, and you can use it offline. Absolutely.
Okay, you had talked briefly about the animals that it covers. Can you go ahead and just rattle off all of the animals that it covers at this point and the
Yeah.
ones that are
So for
coming
the
soon?
people who are watching, we'll do a visual too, but I'll explain it verbally for those who are just listening at the same time. So if I go to our guide, that's going to show our list. So we have whitetail deer, mule deer, elk, pronghorn, Coues whitetail, Columbia blacktail, Rocky and desert bighorn sheep, both thin horns, so doll and stone. We have Rocky Mountain goat. We have Shiras moose, and then we have Canadian. So that's the list of species that is completely done, ready to go. And then we have a whole nother segment that is either in progress or coming soon. And what that means is the calculators will function perfectly. We might just still be gathering some more anatomical data or adding some more. So that list of species would be Canada moose, Yukon moose, Aoudad, oryx, Sitka blacktail, Roosevelt elk, Thule elk, California bighorn sheep, and then all of the caribou species. So if you're on the app and you see that coming soon, it just means we're trying to make sure we provide the most accurate and credible information that we can with the guides and the anatomical data. And some of those animals just naturally are harder to gather anatomical data because they're a little bit more rare.
And with that being said, I want to add in there, guys, with the existing animals that are live in the app now and with these coming soon animals, we want to hear from you. If you're an expert in a field of a certain animal, black-tailed deer or you name it, if you are an expert in that and you have anatomical data, you have information that you think would be pertinent for this app, we want to hear from you. This is, yes, Blake and I have created this, but this is a collaborative effort of trying to draw in as much knowledge and as, there's 19 ways to skin a cat, and we are certainly not trying to, say we are the only ones that know. So, if there's a certain animal, whether it's live on the app right now or in the coming soon, and that's your wheelhouse, you get a hold of us. Blake, where can they get a hold of us the best?
Yeah, so for example, we have our support email. So any of these coming soon animals, you can actually see our support email in there. And then you can also go to the help page on the app and go access our support email. So absolutely, whether it's a coming soon animal or not, if you think you have useful information or anatomicals that you can provide, reach out to that email. And certainly we want to hear from as many hunters and as many experienced hunters as possible.
Blake, what type of media does the app handle?
Uh, you can upload videos, so Digiscope videos, trail camera photos, trail camera videos, any type of media. You can do a combination of both. So as I'm walking through this, I'll just pick let's do an elk because I know I got some elk videos fresh. So I'm just skipping all this and going straight to the media, just kind of demonstrating this. When I go to this add photo video, I will go ahead and add two different files. So I have, this is not an elk image, but we'll add an image just to show it. So I can add an image and a video in the same score. And you can add as many photos and videos to each score if you want. So if you have 10 or 12 trail camera photos of a buck, you can add all those and you could add the videos.
Okay. Can you also use the app without videos or photos?
Honestly, that's one of my favorite ways to use the app, Jay. It's in the field. It's how I use it a lot of the times, especially if I'm actively hunting. If I'm scouting, I'm probably going to try and get video footage before I start breaking the animal down. But if I'm physically hunting, I mean, within a matter, so we'll go back to the homepage here. Let's say I used it this way, Coues deer hunting all season. So within a matter of, a couple of seconds, I'm already on the calculator. So 2 or 3 seconds, I'm scoring. And what I'm doing is, with the calculator, the Field Judge calculator is going to pull up without media. And so you can still access the calculator, the anatomicals, all the tools, and then you could still go back in and add media later. So maybe you're sitting there looking through your spotting scope or looking through your binos or just looking at a trail camera photo on your desktop. However you want to do this, I could go punch in my numbers and then I could always add that media back later to field judge it at a later date.
Okay.
So that's one of my favorite ways to use the app.
Okay. So, and we'll talk about the calculator here in a little bit. Before we get to that, in a general sense, how do you share within the app? What are the ways you can share? And you'll show people in a minute, but just talk about the sharing mechanisms.
Yeah, so absolutely, Jay. We have several different mechanisms to share your score. The first one is obviously to share your scores publicly within the app for all users to see. Then you can share directly to users within the app. So if I wanted to share it just to you or just to a friend, to another HornScore user, and I want just that person to see it, I can share it that way. The next mechanism would be to share score links. Now, let me back up. The benefit to sharing within the app is anytime you share a score within the app, whether it's a Field Judge or Harvest score, the cool thing is you don't just see the breakdown of the score, you see all the media files they attached. So all their trail camera photos, all their videos, and you can also see the anatomical measurements that they've input if it was a Harvest score, which we can dive into that later some more if you want to. The next option is I can text the score as a score link, so it just pops through like a web link on your phone. It's a really neat way to share because you can still see all the media, all the score breakdown, and all the anatomicals. And then the final way that you have to share is to share it as a still image. And the reason we created the still image sharing is so that people could save it to their camera roll, but more importantly, if they want to share those scores on social media, and we've got a couple different aspect ratios or sizes to fit the various, social media platforms, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, etc. So one other thing to add to that is within the sharing, this kind of goes in line. There's different privacy settings when you share scores. So what we want people to understand is you only share scores publicly if you choose to share scores publicly. And you also only choose to share scores at all if you choose to share scores. So whenever you go to share, there's 3 different options. There's a private, an unlisted, and a public. So if you never want anybody to see your score but you can do that. If you wanted, what the unlisted does is it allows me to text the score to Jay and just Jay, or Jay and 2 other buddies. If I make it public, then it populates on the HornScore public scores, and I could share that score individually to people as well.
Blake, one thing I want to point out, we've had a couple questions about that, is the location data. In the public scores, there's options to put the location data, but specifically what I'm talking about is whether you have your phone turned, the location data on your phone or off. Talk a little bit about that and why it was important that we wanted to make sure that we weren't trapping the location data.
Yeah, so Apple has a system, iOS location, when people, if they forget to have it turned off, and I see this with friends, they'll send me a video of a bowl and I'll say, hey, you might want to make sure your location's turned off because everybody can see exactly where you just recorded that from. So one thing we wanted is we didn't want anybody to ever accidentally share a location that they didn't want shared. So whenever you upload media onto the app, whether it's a photo, video, whatever, the location, even if you have it turned on your iPhone, will not come onto the app. So we don't see it. None of the other users ever see it. The only location that's ever shared on the app is the location that you have voluntarily shared. And that's state, county, unit. That's not, specific. So we made sure to turn that off so that it would never be an issue moving forward.
Okay, now I want to dive into the calculator and show and also use audio to explain to those people that are just listening how the calculator works, talk about our defaults, and kind of go through A to Z on the calculator and all of its functions.
Yeah, so what Jay's referring to, just to further clarify, because we technically have 2 calculators on the app. We have a field judge calculator and then we have a harvest score calculator. The field judge calculator is for obviously live animals on the hoof that you're evaluating. The harvest score is for once you've harvested your animal and you want to go score that animal. So what we're going to dive into right now is the field judge calculator, and we'll select let's do mule deer. And we're going to use actually one of our practice videos for the sake of this example, which is another tool since we've already touched on media, as you can leverage HornScore's practice videos. Now, there's the first thing you do once you select your species, you get a score information page. This is both how you're going to organize and categorize all of your scores. It's also where you're going to use defaults. All of this is optional and can be done later except for a default. So if you want to utilize a default, then you're going to do that right off the bat. So we'll give this a test name and then I'll explain defaults here. So for each species, we have created defaults for that animal. And what they are averages for different size class of animals. So for mule deer, for example, you can see it goes from 160 to a 210-inch buck. All of our defaults for antlered animals are based on typical antler configurations. So the way you're going to leverage these for antlered animals is we all have our air judge guess. You look and you say that looks like a 160 buck, that looks like a 170 buck. You're going to take that air judge, you're going to select the appropriate default that most closely matches that, and it's going to pre-fill your calculator with the values that on average match that size class animal. Now, of course, 180, 190 bucks, they can get there in different ways. This just gives you a starting reference point based on averages. So in this scenario,
Right, and in the creation of this app, Blake, when we were going along, it didn't come right away, but we both pretty quickly, I said there has to be a baseline. I think we originally called them baselines, and then I think we came up with the word of default, and it was basically because, I do guess the scores on my Instagram, and, we could have a range of 50 inches. Someone could be saying it's 150 to 200, or on elk, I get stuff that's, 280 to 380, and it's a huge variance. And so we came up with this idea of every species trying to have a default number that gets the intermediate and the beginner users. It gets them in the ballpark. But then there's some features to the defaults that the true veterans and experts can use as well, which you'll get in and you can tell them how to leverage that. But keep going here.
Yeah, it's one of the best features actually we put on the app in terms of getting you more accurate quickly. So we'll select 190-inch default, and then if I hit the show more optional information, I almost always do this after. But this is where you can create your labels. Your labels would be your organizational system for the app. So it's how you organize all of your scores to go back in and, whether you want them ordered by hunt, by year. This is where you can folder all of your scores. And then there's some additional optional information here. You have your location. You'll be able to input this later as well. But then you have a date. So this is if you're entering the score 3 weeks later than you actually filmed it, or got photos of it, you can adjust the date manually here. And then you have an estimated age, obviously, since this would be field judge. We're going to skip all this for now, and we're going to go into the add photos videos. So we showed a minute ago I could hit this add photo video and I could go into my camera roll and I could pull an animal from there. But in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to actually hit the practice video here and hit this open mule deer, and we'll pick this gray buck. I know Jay knows it well. And so the first thing, now that I've selected this video, I could adjust the poster frame if I wanted to, which is just my share image. So if you wanted to change the thumbnail that gets shared out with the score, this is where you would do it. And we're going to go ahead and hit start scoring. And there's a help message that pops up, which you can get rid of that. So this is the field judge calculator. This is the meat and potatoes of the app, right? This is where you're going to spend the bulk of your time actually judging animals. This is what you're going to use. And we'll kind of dive into some of this, and I'm trying to keep it verbal for those who are listening so it's really clear. But on the screen, you obviously have your media file. If I had multiple, there would be arrows to click between these. So if I were to add another media, I'll just do that real quick and see. I might even maybe have a video of that buck. Maybe. No, I don't think I do. But just to show
Just
people,
add another photo.
I'll just throw in a random, and then I'll delete it when I'm done. But once I've hit that and I've added another media, so now you can see I can cycle between these media files right here. And I could leverage, so that's where I could add 10.
So when he says media files, for those listening, he has a picture of a mule deer buck that he's trying to score on the screen, and then there's a left and right arrow to scroll between the different videos or photos that he's uploaded.
Yep. And then I have a video slider, so I can scroll my video. I can go frame by frame in my video by hitting these little plus minus buttons if I want to be very precise or catch an animal kind of as it's turning its head. That's where I can use these plus minus. Maybe I'm trying to get a particular look. It's kind of just starting to dive into some of the nitty gritty things we tried to add, right, to make this as functional as possible for people. The calculator on the bottom, this is where you're going to make all of your adjustments. It's a scrollable horizontal calculator, and it has every measurement you would need to score an animal, whether it's a sheep, mule deer, elk, etc. Now, the one thing we'll touch on is you'll see P1, P2, P3. Some people are probably wondering, well, what is that? And what we've done is taken the common systems of Boone and Crockett, Pope and Young, but we've made our own verbiage and our own language essentially. And part of the reason we did that is because there's some things in field judging that are a little bit different than scoring. So mass, for example, we take the sum of the 4 mass measurements when field judging rather than using all 4 circumference measurements. So we've tried to create a very simple system that makes sense. P for point, AB for abnormal, M for mass, MB for main beam, and just make it extremely simple.
And just to be clear, this is in the field judge calculator. In the harvest calculator, we actually have the slots there for all 4 mass measurements. But in the articles that I've written over the years, it's been very evident to me that the more categorical that we can handle mass and not have people trying to guess each of the 4 circumference measurements and go off of totals, whether it be light, medium, or heavy per animal, that really helps people. And it's such a small range, like Blake is clicking there on the M1 through M4, and we talk about total mass per side for mule deer bucks generally ranges from 16 on the light side to 22 inches on the heavy side. That's only a 6-inch per side variance. So we thought by using these the categories of mass and the summary of mass is going to be much faster and get people in the ballpark a lot more efficient.
And that's a perfect example of it makes you better and it makes you faster just by knowing that and having that accessible right there. So those are the little things that once you start diving in and investing some time in the app, you'll see all these little features built in that are going to make you a lot better. And you'll also notice when I click that, like if I click the P1, for example, you're going to see a graphic of the P1 for those who don't know, as well as instruction text giving you some recommended anatomical references or angles that you should be looking for when estimating the eye guards, for example. And the same thing will be the case for the P2, etc. So for every measurement built into the calculator is instruction text if you're trying to learn the step by step. And then really one of the most important things in the Field Judge calculator is this button up here called Anatomicals. And this pulls up a list of all the different anatomicals you can use for mule deer when field judging. It has a picture with a graphic showing you where that anatomical reference is taken and how it's taken. It shows you the general range of that anatomical, and then it is customizable. So And we can dive, I mean, we could probably make a whole podcast on the value of anatomicals and customizing, but anatomicals vary region to region. One of the things we're doing on this app is trying to trap a bunch of that over time. But for now, you have your typical range, and then if you know it differs than our typical range, you could hit this pencil icon, and I could come in here and I could customize it and say, I know it's 25.5 inches where I hunt for the ear tip to ear tip. Now I'm using that custom value. So you can customize these as well. This table is the backbone of what you're using. You'll notice, and with mule deer, for example, everything except for the main beam and mass, there's going to be a listed anatomical for you to use, or a recommended one. A very common one for mule deer is to use the ear length to estimate the P2s, the P3s, and the P4s. So leveraging that table combined with the instruction text under each measurement is what's going to get you precise. A couple more things I'll point out here. This is one I want to touch on. If I hit this more button, which is the ... and I hit this show optional, because one thing we've heard from some people is there's only one abnormal box, right? Well, now there's 5. So what we wanted to do is keep the calculator looking clean for most circumstances, but have users have the ability to expand. And so for mule deer, there's no additional typical points, but there are 5 more abnormal points. In the case of elk, for example, I think the original calculator shows 5 typical points and 1 abnormal. If you hit the expanded, it'll give you 8 typical points and 5 abnormal. So if you ever need more boxes or more inputs, you just go up to this ... and hit that show optional. Now I can hide it and I can make those all go away again.
And just to be clear too, Blake, you've clicked on the actual boxes, but if you click on where the values go, that is where you actually change your measurements and make your calculations that are different from the defaults. I know you're going to hit that.
Yep.
But as you study right there, you can zoom in. Blake's on his computer, so it's not quite as easy on the computer, but on an iPhone, you just pinch, zoom in, zoom out. Use the fast forward. You can toggle across the bottom, the plus minus. Then you start breaking down each individual measurement. But what's nice is you're starting with a default number, so you're in the ballpark. And for those people that aren't as experienced, they throw up a default, whatever default they choose. If they're in the ballpark, then they start saying, is the default number plus or is the real number on the screen plus or minus the default? And that's when you start making your changes from the default number.
For sure. That's the first way you use a default, right? Is you look and you start looking through some of the measurements and going, does this buck look like he has what I think he should, or what he should have to meet this score, right? Does this buck have at least 17-inch seconds? The answer is yes. Does he have 10-inch third and fourths? The answer is probably yes. It's like, okay, I'm in the ballpark. I am pretty close. And so now if I wanted to start adjusting, let's say I think the P2 on this buck is a little bit bigger. Maybe I think it's 19. Right now I'm looking at the left and the right's kind of sticking through on the other side. All I would do is click in that box, and I could just plus minus, and let's say I think they're both 19. I could hit same LR and hit save. Now my total gross score has gone from 190 to 194, and it's going to be changing every time I make an adjustment on every score on every input that I make.
And when Blake first asked me about what do you want in a calculator, it was very important to me that I had a revolving gross score, that at every single measurement that you inputted, that it was constantly changing. I didn't want to have to hit add or sum or anything like that. I want it to just be constantly changing. So if I'm subtracting an eighth or adding an eighth or adding an inch or subtracting an inch, that it constantly be changing. And so that when I get done, up in the upper right hand corner and the right side of the calculator, that my gross score was calculated. Now I could always go back and edit numbers, but and then Blake showed there a second where there was a same LR. That's if you have a real typical buck, much like this buck on the screen. If you wanted to be fast, you could just do one side and double it. And that's going to get you in a close ballpark if you were, trying to be quick with your estimation.
Yep. I mean, there's tons of little features built in to the calculator to make life simple, to make life easy. Kind of the general template of the app. Like if I could make one recommendation to people who are listening are going to go play with it, pick an animal that you're interested. Go into our quick guide for field judging. Let's say it's mule deer. Go in and read the quick guide for field judging mule deer. Particularly go down to the estimating measurements, which is the bottom, the step-by-step guide. Come in here, familiarize yourself with this anatomical table. Familiarize yourself with being able to click these measurement boxes, so where it says P2, get instruction text, and use a default, right? Pull up a buck that you have, or download one from Public Scores. We can show you that here in a little bit too, because you can field judge other people's animals for them, and go through that
Show the
process.
guide too, right there.
Yep. So from the calculator, you can also access the guide from the main screen, but from every calculator, no matter if it's Harvest or Field Judge, you can pull the guide up right from here. So if you really wanted to get into some more detailed information, you can look through the whole guide, and there's a ton of good information in here. It's, we can't talk about it all right now, but there's also, so there's components of score, percentage of score, some general thoughts, and then there's going to dive into a step-by-step guide of how to field judge mule deer in this case. There's quick tips down at the bottom. I mean, there's more in here. This is one thing, like, if I could make a recommendation, if you're already an expert, maybe you don't need to read it. But if you still feel like you have some room to grow on a certain species, please read the guide first, because it not only tells you about that animal, but it also tells you how you can best leverage our app to assess that animal. So there's tips and tricks about using the app in there as well.
Okay, so Blake, let's say that we're done with that score. How would you then share that?
Yep. So one thing I'll point out, since this was a practice score in particular, one thing for guys to remember whenever you're using these practice scores, we've actually put a known score at the end of this. So you can actually use our practice videos, you can make all your guesses, and then you can go back in and reference them to the actual known score at the end. So that's a neat feature, especially if you're learning. All right, so if I was done, all I would do is hit this upload and share button. And once I get to the upload and share, the next screen that pops up is a thumbnail icon. So this is a good example where this buck really doesn't quite fit. So what I would do is hit fit vertically. It's just the aspect ratio of the image. So if I hit fit vertically, so you can make your share page work with different aspect ratios. Now I can make this photo fit nice, and I could zoom it in a little bit further if I wanted to tighten it up and adjust that image. We'll hit save. Then I go through and I select my privacy option. This is the only thing that's mandatory that you have to do on this screen. And this is where I go into my private, unlisted, or public. So private, once again, we talked about this a little bit, but only you can see it. Unlisted is, it's still a private score, but you can share it out to people. So that's what we'll make this one. We'll make it unlisted. The third option would be public, meaning I could still text it to Jay or share it to Jay, but it's going to show up on the public scores. And I've got a made up location in here. So now I can set my location. Now, we really, really want to encourage people to share their location as much as possible, because one of the things we're trying to do with this app, Jay, right, is we're trying to build a historical database. And the more accurate location information you give, whether it's county or unit, the more valuable that data is. Whether we're talking about the anatomicals that people measure, or if we're talking about the score, all that data is going to create a resource for all of us. So hypothetically, let's say in 2 years, you want to go mule deer hunt in Eagle County, Colorado. The ability to go look through Eagle County bucks in Colorado and look at the different score ranges, look at the makeup, look at the anatomicals, that's a resource that we're trying to collectively build, not just us, but with all of our users. So certainly we want people, we know there's times you may not want to share location, but as often as you can and the more detailed you can share it, it's going to benefit all hunters. We're all going to benefit from this. So the perspective is when you do share it, you're sharing it to help all the hunters, in the future. So we'll do a makeup one. I know Jay looks like you want to say something, so go ahead, and I'm just going to put in a fake unit here.
No, I mean, it's just when we were creating this app, it really dawned on us that, creating that database and that, collaborative, community where, if you draw a tag in Iowa and you've never hunted in Iowa and you could go and let's say you're from, the West Coast or the East Coast, you've never been to Iowa, but you want to go and look at a certain county where you're going to hunt, and you could go on in there and there's, 63 bucks from Iowa, or there's 6,000, or there's 600. Whatever that number is, you're going to want to familiarize yourself. What do the bucks look like? Do they have more mass? They're beamy? Are they boxy? Like, what kind of configuration? And then you go on there and you're like, wow, there's 72 bucks from this county in Iowa that I'm hunting, and all the bucks look different. Or you might say, wow, these bucks are starting to look a lot alike. And then, so before you even step foot in the unit, you kind of have an idea of what to expect. And that is our idea with the public scores. Now, granted, guys, if you're field judging animals and you're scouting, you're not going to want to tell people where you're looking or maybe even make those public. But after the hunt, you've killed that buck or whatnot, go ahead and come back and, change those settings, make it public, give the unit, give the county, because that's going to help you downstream. And if we can look at this more as a community effort of just trying to help other hunters, you draw a beaver elk tag in Utah, it's a once in a lifetime tag, and you've field judged and digiscope 50 bulls, and you kill a nice bull, you've got your harvest score. It doesn't hurt to go ahead and share data, and so down the road when someone draws that same beaver elk tag, and 100 people have entered their data here, it creates a great data set and data points, and a database to let people do some research and know what to expect going into that hunt.
Yeah, and on that note, like if users have old scores from 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it doesn't matter because it's still relevant data, right? Whether it's an animal you harvested or an animal you filmed, that's just as valuable for the app as a guy who, harvests something in 2 years. So if you guys have old data, we'd highly encourage you to get on, upload it. It's a great way to get comfortable with the app and see how it works, and share those scores publicly so everybody can see it. So that, yeah, if you have old stuff, post that too. In this share process, you could also control the media that you upload with the score. So say it is a public score. Maybe you don't want a certain video or photo. Maybe it shows the background. And this is a perfect example because I put that sheep in here. I obviously wouldn't want that. So I could uncheck that, and that media is not going to upload. So it won't share with the score. It's still going to stay in the local score, but it won't share. And then I have a caption. This can be used as a caption for a public score, or it can be used as a note if it's a personal score. So
you could tell the story about the buck. I mean, it will handle up to 1,100 characters. So I mean, you could tell, your historical story of the buck. You could tell, it's a caption area for your own personal notes, or if you want to, write a couple paragraphs there. That's what we made it for.
You can also tag people too. So like I just tagged Jay, so if I posted this publicly, it would show up there. Now the next thing, this is just a preview screen of one of the images. So the first thing you do is just upload your score to the cloud. So your score is going to upload, so all the media files are going to... You have to upload to share the score anyway, except as an image. As an image, you don't necessarily have to upload it to the cloud, but the first thing you should do is upload it so you have all the sharing mechanisms. And once the score has been uploaded, this is when all those sharing options pop up. So we have the share to HornScore users, the text score and web link, and then we have a share as image. You also have a copy link button down here. And for people who are wondering why that's there, because once I finish this score, I could rescore someone's animal within the app using this copy link. So I could do a score, and we can show that some other time, but I could do a score and I could post that in the comments. So if Jay posted up a video and said, what do you guys think this bull scores? I could download all his media, go score it, and then I could copy this link and post it back in there. But that's kind of a separate thing. So if I were to share this to Jay on the app, let's see, I'm gonna have to search it here. Let's see, Jay Scott Outdoors, and I could send him a message and say, check out this buck, and I could even go as far as I want and say, what do you think he scores?
And send it, and we'll show people how fast it comes through.
So I'll send that to Jay. So that's the in-app sharing mechanism. So as soon as Jay should have it pretty much by now.
So I'm just opening up my app right now, and it's already there. There's a red dot right there.
So the really neat thing about this
is right here, Blake Cannon is shared with you, and here it is right here.
So now I only uploaded that one video, but Jay could open up that video. He can see the score breakdown, and he could look at the media. And you can even see on there's a download icon where Jay could download that video now, and he could create a whole new score and then give me his full guess. And
right, so we wanted to make it where you could share within the app, and then he could send it to me, and then I could put all my input numbers and send it back to him. In other words, if he's like, Jay, what do you think this scores? Give me your opinion. Then I could take his video and send it right back to him with all of my inputs in the calculator.
Yeah, and even to further that, like for people who are newer, the one thing I recommend is put your guesses in, upload it to the public scores, and say, hey, what do you think this scores? Because people can go on and you can get help from other HornScore users, and we can all help each other. So that same function can work for the public scores as well. Or you could send it just to your buddies and have them, however you decide to use it. The text and score web link is going to share the score very similar, but that's how you could share it an interactive version of the score, but to people who don't have the app. So you can still do it that way too. Do you want me to send the score web link, Jay?
Sure.
Yeah.
Already came. He just hit it, and it's already right there.
So now Jay can see the interactive version of the score and see the same thing. He could see all the media. So now Jay, if he didn't have the app and I text him that way, he could see all the media files, the full score, the full breakdown that way too. And then the shares image. One option is the square image, which is your Instagram mechanism. So we created like we call it like a scorecard. And it shows a picture. It shows your username. So it's, anytime a image gets shared, it's preserving your username as your score. And then it's got the name of the score, whether it's field judge or harvest, the species, and then the full score breakdown. And then the last way to share it is this preview image right here. You can share it as this full length image too, which works really good for camera roll or Facebook or something like that. I know I post it in Facebook comments and stuff a lot. When guys are asking for help, I'll share that full score image that way. Because that's one of my favorite things is, with field judging, a lot of guys want help, right? Jay, you get emails all the time like, what is this score? What is this score? What is this score? Well, the cool thing about this app is you can ask tons and tons of dedicated people who are passionate about this, and you can, it's almost like a Facebook group for field judging, right? I don't know if you're on any Facebook groups, Jay, but people are like, let's say it's an automotive one for a UTV or side by side, like there's like 100 questions a day. What do I do with this? How do I get the AC fixed? Blah blah blah. Well, that's what this is going to be for field judging, is guys being able to interact, and the cool thing is, it's going to be only people who are passionate about field judging and scoring, right?
Right. You can leverage their knowledge as well.
Yep. So that's one thing I'm really excited about, is people, hunters being able to help each other. So that's the gist of the field judging, and then sharing your field judge scores as well as the public scores. But do you want to do a harvest score, Jay, or do you want me to dive over to public scores real quick?
Let's do a harvest score real fast.
Okay.
Guys, just to be clear, we get questions every day. There's a difference between a field judge. Field judge is for live animals. Harvest score is for already harvested or dead animals. So when you do your public scores, make sure you choose if it's live, it's field judge. If it's dead, it's a harvest score. And Blake made a good point about old scores. We're getting a lot of people going back and inputting bucks and bulls and rams and stuff that they've shot over the years, and all it's doing is adding historical context for everyone else. And then you can filter and scroll and look at just mule deer bucks. You can search for certain size. You can just look at, Colorado elk or Utah elk or Arizona elk. You could look at just specific units. And that's our goal, is to have a database and a glossary where people can really get specific. If they just want to look at elk, great. If they want to look at, Colorado, Unit 2 elk, they can look at Colorado Unit 2 elk. Or if they want to look at a certain county, they can put that in as well.
Yeah, and we'll show them a little glimpse of the public scores here in a minute too. But let's say, let's do sheep. So for harvest score, we'll do desert bighorn. Same thing, you can give it a name. Normally it's, your name of the animal or the hunt, or however you want to name it. One thing that's different for harvest scores is we've given people a self-reporting mechanism. So whether it's an official or unofficial score. So if it has been officially scored and these are official measurements, of course this is just self-reporting. But most of the time it's going to be unofficial. But if you have had it scored, and record those numbers in as official, just to help users know that this is a more proof.
As you know, official scores are a lot, usually more dead on. It's more of a systematic approach, and that there's a lot, smaller variance of difference. But I wanted to make sure that we could upload camp scores, unofficial scores, as well as, state scores, any of the record book scores. So it's official or unofficial.
Yeah, and this is, so just to show people real quick, let's say that I had, let's say I'd done a bunch of field judge scores. This is a harvest score, of course, but I wanted to create a label, and we'll just say that it was, let's say it was an Arizona Desert Bighorn in 2025, and let's say it's Arizona 2025 Desert Bighorn. We won't put a unit in there or anything, but just call it my Arizona 2025 hunt. So now every field judge score that I set that label, I could go back in 10 years and I could look at all the rams I field judged from that unit, and the ram that I ended up harvesting. So you can use the labels however you want. You can get as specific as you want. You could do it by animal. So a whitetail guy who maybe watches the same buck for 5 or 6 years, or in your case elk, on the ranches you're on, Jay. Or you could just do it by hunt. You could do it by a Colorado second season hunt. You can structure
Yeah, and
these
then
labels however you want.
and some of the guides and the professional guides, outfitters that are watching, they may be guiding 4 or 5 different sheep hunts a year. So they might have, a unit 22, a unit 43B, a unit 15D, a unit 13B North, and have all of their different units that they're scouting in. So then you have your year 2025, 2024, and then over time you say, I want to look at all the 15D Rams. Well, it may go back to when you started in 2001 all the way to 2025. So you got 25 years of 15D Rams. So you can get as simple or as complex as you want with the labeling system. And
Yeah,
that's one of the things I told Blake is we really need to do a good job of organizing and categorizing and labeling so that people can find, because in a given year I could have 4, 5, 600 scores, and I need to be able to find them fast. And so creating a good categorization labeling system was important to us.
yeah, and just to clarify that a little bit, what Jay's saying is you can add multiple labels to each score. So I could have 5 labels on each score, which on the back end, when you go back to sift through it, makes it really easy to see exactly what it is that you're looking for when you're going through
Yeah,
your
and
hunt.
so to take that a step further, I could have like Unit 22 trophy rams, Unit 22 up and comer rams, Unit 22 broken horn rams. And so, then I go, 5 years from now, I go, I need to look at all of the up and comer rams, and it pulls up every up and comer ram, and then it pulls up the unit, like, so you can get very detailed and specific. There's not a limit on the number of labels that you can put.
And this is, we'll go through a location, just we'll pretend it's a 22 in Arizona. So I could select United States, I could go to Arizona. Now you can do this by county or by state unit or by both. In this case, we'll do state unit. We'll scroll down here to, we'll scroll down to 22. We'll select 22 and hit set location. So now this score is going to, because I can filter, it's not just for public scores, I can filter my own scores based on location as well. So you should be inputting your location even if you're not sharing the score publicly, because it creates a filter under your own scores too. And then the harvest date, this is a perfect example. I would want to go back and reflect the correct harvest date. So I could go back to say 2024 and then go to, December
December.
and hit
Show
done.
show people right here because I get questions. Go back to that December. When you want to actually put the date, it's an Apple thing. You need to
You
actually
hit,
click there. Yeah, and
yeah, you
then
hit
you can choose
December.
your date from there. I've had some people ask me some questions saying that you couldn't do the date.
Yep. So you just click where it's actually, once you set the year and the month, it's just an Apple thing. Yeah. You click where it says December 2024, and then you could change the date, hit done. And then for a sheep, you'd probably count the annuli and you'd input, his age here based on the counting the annuli, given that this is a harvest animal. And people probably do that on their field judge course too, counting the annuli. But now I'd hit next, add photos, videos. One thing to remind people, a lot of people when they go to post harvest scores are going to think, oh, I just post the picture of just me holding my ram or holding my bull. But this is a really cool opportunity to post animals if you have video trail camera photos of that animal on the hoof, because then people can go back and look and say, hey, I have a known score here of this ram, for example, and I can see the harvest photo, which is awesome, but I can also go back and look at him on the hoof and compare what he looked like to his actual measurements. That's going to be one of the neatest things, because when people can look at animals, on the hoof as they're going to see them when they're hunting and see the known score, that's when we can really start to learn a lot. So we're definitely encouraging people, whenever you post your harvest scores, post all the media you have of it. Photos,
This is
videos.
part of creating the database that has been our goal from the beginning of creating a spot where, once in a lifetime Unit 22 tag, and you get to go on here and you get to see the harvest, maybe a bunch of different angles of the harvest photos of the ram, but then you get to see pictures of the ram alive, maybe some video, and you're just creating all sorts of downstream value for the next person that draws that once in a lifetime tag the next year or 5 years from now. And the more people that input all of that data, the more helpful it's going to be, and the more valuable the resource is going to be.
Yeah, so I don't have a harvest photo of a ram here, top of my list, I don't think. Doesn't look like it. But
It's all right. Just put any photo. It doesn't
yeah,
matter.
so let's say I took this one and then posted this video. So I can post these multiple media files to the harvest score just like I can. And normally I'd obviously post the hunter holding the ram. And then once I'm done, so I would click the poster frame that I want. In this case, I would leave it at this one. But you can change the poster frame. So if you want to change your sharing image, you can do that. So now we're going to hit start scoring. The calculator is
Show
going to
that real fast. Show that. Well, it's okay.
Oh, the pop-up message. So I could
Yes.
also access this pop-up message again. So if you don't want to see it, you can hit that do not show again. But if you ever need help again, these question marks are throughout the app. Have these help messages throughout the app. So if you have any questions, some of them have videos depending on how complex of a feature it is. But whenever you need help, just hit those question icons. Because more than likely, Jay, users are missing things and not realizing that they're missing things because we've made the app relatively complex, but it's because we've tried to make it as feature rich as possible. For example, simple things like if I click on this link, the horn, I can see a full graphic breakdown of the horn, just like you could on the field judge calculator. So you can click through all the different images and see the graphic of how to take your various measurements. Um, One reason I chose sheep jay for doing the harvest scores because we have an additional feature for horned animals that is only relevant to horned animals, and it's something that is a headache for a lot of people, which is figuring out where to take your quarter mass measurements. And because what you do is right is you take your longer horn and you divide it by 4, which sounds simple enough, but the problem is the fractions go all the way to 30 seconds. And I don't know about you, but if you don't have access to the booklet that shows you where to take those, that's not an equation most people are going to get right most of the time. So one thing that we've added is once you input your horn lengths on the app, it's going to automatically take the longest horn and it's going to tell you where your first, second, and third quarter mass measurement are supposed to be taken. So you no longer have to find that book or do that math yourself. So we're going to go ahead and just type that in, and we'll say we were dealing with let's say a 37-inch horn and then a 37 and 3/8. That's going to be our longer horn. And you'll notice next to the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, all of those locations are already showing. So just another simple thing. So for any horned animal, you're gonna have that feature on there as well. The process to using the harvest calculator is simple. All you're gonna do is go through if you need to look at where the measurement's taken, and then you're gonna go in here and punch in your numbers. And there's the same LR. It's not always as relevant, but for sheep sometimes it is. And you'd go in and punch in all your numbers until you get to your gross score. And one thing we want to point out is just like the field judge calculator, you can access all the guides. And for every animal, we have a video of how to score as well. So if you wanted to pull up the guide and watch the video, let's see if this will play on my thing here. Kind of does. So if you ever want to, if you want to
Have
access a
two
video of
length
how to score
measurement.
something, you can pull this up for all of our species. And then there's obviously a text and graphic guide as well. So the only other thing I really want to touch on here, Jay, is
Anatomicals.
yep, recording and measuring. So this is another thing that I don't think people have ever really done, right? Not historically. This isn't something I think a lot of hunters it's been common practice. So this is something that we're trying to encourage people in the beginning because this is something that directly values you a lot. If you can start to record your own anatomicals and measure them, then you're going to get a lot of value the next time that you hunt that location. And if you share it, you're helping everybody. Because the more accurate regional anatomicals that we can get and continue to build our database, the better that we're all going to be. The more that we can refine our general ranges and create regional charts for hunters and users, we're all going to get way more accurate. And it's super easy. What I've been telling people, because I know even me this year, like down in Mexico, I was trying to get all the coos bucks that I was around, and I'd forget because it wasn't a habit that I've been in. And so what I do now is I have a little cloth tape that I leave in the lid of my backpack. And as soon as we harvest something and are done taking pictures, I just snag my measurements because usually you quarter it up and you forget about it. So you kind of it's one of those things you need to remember to do early. But you can go and record, and so you can click on all these. You can see where the measurement's supposed to be taken, and then you can go in here and I don't remember what a sheep is off the top of my head, but let's say it's 5 for inside of eye to inside of eye. I would type that measurement in, and you can go just like you can on the calculators. You can go into eighths and record those. So then, if you do share this score publicly, the score shares, the media shares, and the anatomical share. So that's going to be an incredible resource moving forward when guys can go in and say now they can not only just go look at Eagle County mule deer bucks and see the score breakdown, but they can also see all the anatomicals that were recorded by hunters. They can take those anatomicals, and if they're going to hunt that same area, they can put them into their field judge calculator and work off of the best data possible.
You can also click on the guide there and go to the anatomical charts, and it will
Yep.
show you the measurements that we're looking for. And then once you find those measurements, then you can record them in the anatomical data points right there.
Yep.
And that'll really help.
Yep. So just being able to reference those and see where it's taken, and all you're doing is just taking a soft cloth tape and taking those measurements. And then the sharing process, we don't need to go through that again because it's identical. It's the same exact process as field judging. One more thing I think we should touch on, Jay, I know we want to show public scores real quick, but just to reiterate, guys, there's incredible guides for field judging and harvest scores for you guys to dive into. It's super important. We really want people to leverage these because a lot of this stuff is, stuff Jay, we've taken what he's been doing for a long time and compiling it and refining it. So make sure and take advantage.
Click on that antelope one and just thumb
Sure.
through it.
Yep. So you'll see there's a component to score. So the first thing's obviously, what goes into a score for a pronghorn. Then you're going to see average percentage of score. And we talk a lot about percentage of score because it's important to understand what the most important facets are. It's not necessarily it's an exact science, but you really want to know what makes or breaks an animal score so that you're devoting the most amount of time to getting that portion right. For example, like when we talk about antlered animals, which is not the case for pronghorn, mass is not nearly as important in terms of percentage of score. For pronghorn, you can see it the most important component. So if you don't nail mass on a pronghorn, your guess isn't going to be very good. And you can go down into the guides, and there's a lot of things about talking about the base mass measurements because for antelope specifically, you really need to do a good job and nail the base mass measurement because all your measurements after that are going to be impacted, or all your guesses are going to be impacted. So then we talk a little bit about how you're going to leverage anatomicals, and you're going to see kind of a graphic example of how you could do that. Then you're going to see the anatomicals chart, and then we dive into the step-by-step measurements. So we're going to walk you through from step A to Z how to score a pronghorn buck. Everything has hyperlinks in it. So whenever you're going through our guides, if you see hyperlinks, that means that you can click on the image, and I don't know if this will work on my Mac or not, but there it goes. So you can click on all these hyperlinks and you're going to see a bunch of different ones, whether it's showing a characteristic or a measurement, and you can read through these guides. Then you're going to see sections with how you can best leverage the app. So not just pronghorn stuff, but how you can use the app to get the most out of your pronghorn field judging. And then you'll see some tips and some other things. Like you'll see down here, you're going to see some various tips. And this guide in particular, Dave Brown of Pronghorn Guide Service helped us out. And that's what we're trying to do with all those other guides, right? Like, Jay, the truth is, you and I know some about pronghorn, but we're not pronghorn experts, either of us. So we reached out to guys like Dave Brown, who, I'll joke, Dave talks about it like a mathematician, like the guy knows more about pronghorn. And so we've collaborated with people because we want to provide people the best and most credible information that we can. And then we've tied in how you're going to use this incredible information to get the most out of the app. So that you can also download these guides right here, just for example. So if I was going offline and I want to download this, I could do that right here. That kind of covers the guides. I mean, obviously they're unique to each species depending on what it is you're chasing, but definitely leverage the guides.
Yeah, and I think the next thing we want to dive into is show the public scores. And every day it's fun to open up the public scores and see some of the new stuff that's getting posted. And as we get into this hunting season, there's going to be a lot more, revolution here as far as, there's going to be a lot of revolving public scores coming to the app. And so it's an exciting kind of time to see these scores being reflected. So go ahead and show them and talk them through the audio portion of this.
Sure. So I just clicked on the scores tab on the app, and you can see the two scores that I just did for the example. This mule deer buck, it tells me my privacy settings, so unlisted. And then you can go and see the sheep, which I didn't upload yet, so I didn't see there's no privacy set yet. So this is just your my scores. You can filter. So when we were talking about labels, you can filter through all your scores. I know I'm not touching on public scores yet, but just showing this. So I can filter throughout my scores by, say, species. So I could go to coos, and I could look at all these different coos bucks, and you can see the labels that I have on here. So I could go sift through these labels as well and go look through all of my scores. Going over to the top right, we have our public scores. And this is really, really neat. So Jay posted the most recent one. He's posted a couple recently. And you can see there's a whole bunch of things. We've talked about how you can share this, but so let's open up Jay's Field Judge RAM here, 175 and 4/8. You can see he's got his title. It shows the species, the date, the location, and then Jay's caption as well. I can open up this score, and I can see all of Jay's media files that he uploaded. So in this case, it looks like we've got a range of different pictures of this ram, and I can look through all these media files. And like I said, if I wanted to, I could download all these media files onto my phone, and I could go rejudge this buck if I wanted to and share it back to Jay. You can go down here and see the full score breakdown. And in this case, there's obviously not going to be anatomicals because it's a field judge score. And then you can also see Jay's caption. You can like it. I can comment on it and comment, and I'll say, awesome ram. And normally I'd probably give a little more detail in a response, but just for the sake of the video. So now Jay can see my comment, and anybody else can either. I could also share Jay's score to other people if I wanted to. So maybe if I want to share it out and say, look how cool this is, I could do that. We'll go back here, and we'll just kind of scroll through it a little bit.
Guys, just to show you here, this is my app, and it already has Blake's comment here and shows that he's commented. So I mean, it happened immediately.
And just kind of scrolling through here, you can see, Tony posted this Coos buck. Kyle Combs posted this Coos buck. We'll scroll down a little bit. Jay's been going nuts on it lately.
Click on that last sheep right there and show him the anatomicals.
This one? Oh, did you add it to this one? Cool. So we've got Dave Moore, Arizona 44B, 174-inch ram. So same thing, I could open up the media, but if I go down to the bottom here, you'll see this anatomicals button. And now you can see let's say that I had a 44B North tag and I wanted to input these, okay? I could then put these values as my custom values in my calculator if I wanted to. So I could benefit from Jay's work, and I could go use these values for my future hunt. Let's say I had that tag. So you can see the score, and you can see the anatomicals off the ram, and you can see the media. You can also filter public scores. So we'll go back up to the top, and maybe we want to look through just whitetail bucks. And if I want to look through just whitetail bucks, I would just go select whitetail, done. Now I'm going to be seeing just whitetail deer. And I could scroll, and you can see there's a whole bunch of stuff. We've already got quite a bit of content on here for whitetail bucks. And you can further filter this if you wanted. So maybe you're saying, I don't want to see field judge bucks. I only want to see animals that were harvested. So then I would set this filter and say harvest score only. Now I'm not going to see any field judge whitetails anymore. I'm only going to see bucks that were harvested, or vice versa. So you can filter through the public scores. You can comment. You can rescore other people's animals if they're field judge scores. There's a lot of different ways to leverage these public scores. And we're probably going to continue to add to these filters too. We'll probably continue to make them more and more in depth as the database grows as well. Anything you want to add on the public scores, Jay?
No, not really. I think you covered it. I just think it's a great resource to be able to go and kind of study and learn. And I find myself, even as the app's launching, just going on there, checking it a couple times a day and seeing what new stuff comes on. And you've got Instagram, you got Facebook, you got all that kind of stuff, but you typically don't have the data that we're providing here and that the user is providing. So it's really neat to be able to see the anatomicals. Maybe he's got a little story about the animal, and then see the measurements, and then have the ability to download it and score it yourself and practice yourself. Is pretty awesome. Like right there, we've got already some great guides. Some Steve Chappell, Elk Camp TV, already posting stuff on the app, and
Posting his dinosaurs.
What?
Posting his dinosaurs.
Yeah, these
409-inch dinosaurs.
giant 400-inch elk. But it's just awesome to be able to, he's got videos here, he's got photos, and so it's a real. I think it's going to be a great resource for hunters out there. Just getting better at their craft.
There's a lot of things this thing does, but one of the simple ones is, what does a 400-inch bull elk look like? What does a 360-inch bull look like? And going through and comparing and contrasting, right? That was a 409-inch bull, and then scrolling up here to right up here, there's a 361-inch, which is still a phenomenal bull. But guys are always asking that question: what does this animal look like? And being able to look through these different media files and just even on these harvest scores and kind of compare the differences and contrast is a really good way to refine your skills. And then when they do upload field judge scores, this is something I do for fun. When someone uploads like Digiscope video or trail camera footage of a harvested animal, I'll download the footage before I look through the breakdown. I'll go try and judge it, and then I'll compare it back to the known score at the end. That's a great way to practice and go, okay, I'm going to use this video as a tool or resource for myself.
Blake, one thing I want to show real fast is go to a field judge score and go to either desert sheep or Rocky Mountain sheep. The sheep guys are really going to geek out on this stuff with the defaults. Show right there, click and show the level of detail that we went in with the defaults. So really right there, you know, I didn't see if this was a desert or a rocky,
Desert.
but you're
Yep.
going from 14-inch bases, 32-inch length, 14-inch base, 37-inch length, and then it jumps up to 14 and a half inch, 32 to 37, and then it goes every half inch. So now you're at 15, you're at 15 and a half, you're at 16. And what that's going to allow you to do is, if you know the historical base data in your unit and you know that it's, you know, typically 15-inch bases, you can look there where there's a bunch of 15-inch bases, and then you just go, well, I think it's about 34 inches long. So then you just use that as your default. The other thing with the sheep guys is, guys, we're going to be able to take this data, and I already have a bunch of charts and stuff for the different units that I've guided in over the years, knowing that there's a huge difference in bases and overall mass in Unit 22 as compared to, say, over in the western part or 15D with the Nelsoni. So I'm going to be creating, you know, a 44B North, you know, 170 type RAM, you know, mass default, and then I'm going to create a unit 22. I'm going to have my 170, my 175, my 180, my 185 that's specific to that unit, and we've made it where you can actually make your own defaults, and so the sheep guys are really going to geek out on it. I've
Yeah,
already had some great feedback from guys.
just to show one, let's say you're looking at a RAM, you know the historical bases are roughly 15 inches, and then you're out in the field looking at a RAM and you go, okay, he looks like he has 33-inch horns, so we're going to select 15, 33, and then we'll skip the media. We'll go straight into the calculator, and now you'll see that it has those 33-inch length horns, it has the 15-inch bases, and it has, you know, the average values based on the formulas that we apply to what your subsequent mass measurements should be. And you know, you could also, to simply, let's say you wanted to get very specific and you want to get even more detailed than our half inch, and let's say you want to go to 2/8 for your bases, and then you would change your additional adjustments from here to your other mass measurements. But now I could go create my own custom default as well, like you were touching on, and I could hit save as default, and now I can make my own to add to our already comprehensive list. So I could call it 15 and 2/8 default, and I could make my own. I'd obviously want to pre-fill the rest of the calculator, or I could also just have my default if I wanted to do a custom, and I could clear all this out, and I could have just the bases be my default if I wanted to make a custom one that way. So we've really made it to where we've tried to make it as comprehensive as possible, but also leave it open for guys to add, you know, more and more detailed things that are unique or custom to themselves as well.
Blake, a couple of last minute things before we end this podcast. We've gone over the app pretty extensively. Number one, how do people find the app? Where do they go to download it? How does that process work?
Yep, so all you have to do is type in HornScore, HornScore, into either of the respective app stores, whether it's Google Play or Apple, and you will find us.
Okay. And how much is the app?
The app is $49.99 a year, which is equivalent to $4.17 a month. So for less than a Starbucks latte a month, you could have, you know, access to this field judging resource and the scoring resource and the community. I really, from a value proposition perspective, I really want people to think of it more than just a tool and more of a community, a resource, a database that also has incredible tools built into it. And I know for me, like a quarter of the app's worth the money, but of course I'm biased because I built it. So I was one of the ones who built it. But
And another question I get from guides and outfitters: do you guys offer a guide and outfitter program or discount?
we do offer a 40% off for guides and outfitters.
And how do they need to contact you for that?
Reach out to support@hornscore.com, or they can reach out to, you know, if they have one of our contacts, they can just reach out directly to us as well.
Okay. How else can people find out about the app, and what are the social media links for HornScore?
Yeah, so right now it's HornScore Official is our Instagram and Facebook, and then it's just HornScore on YouTube. And we're posting a ton of content on there, daily content. And a lot of it's just how to use the app, highlighting features, things like that. So definitely follow along. And we're going to be posting some more educational content as the app grows on those pages as well.
one thing I'd like to say, guys, if you have questions about the app or if there's something, a feature that you don't think is here, and you know, before you say, "Man, if they, they don't have this feature," reach out to us because there's a really good chance that the feature is there. You just haven't been able to find it. So, again, we want this to be a community. We want to help each other. If there's things in this app that you want to see, let us know. If there's things in the app that you think should be there, but you can't find it, and you can't find it in the help menu, you can shoot a text to HornScore official. You can shoot an email to that support@hornscore.com, I believe. But we want to hear from you. If you see certain anatomicals, you see things that may be different in your region. That is the beauty of what this app is about. If we have to create a separate field because you found an anomaly, in your rams or in your bucks or something, we want to hear about that, and we want to make this app as good as we possibly can. So, part of the collaborative effort of, reach out to us, tell us what you're thinking. Blake and I are already every day are fielding questions and whatnot from users that have already found the app, and we've already been able to parlay some pretty good ideas just off of customer feedback. So this is a community. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your feedback. We want to hear your support. And again, go on the App Store. Give a good rating, a good detailed rating, 5-star rating. We love to get those good. I believe we've already got, what, Blake, 25 or 27 app reviews,
Yeah.
which obviously help us. And guys, we appreciate that support.
It's critical for us. And I am going to preventatively ask and answer, respond to a question that's been asked a lot, which is HornScore AI? That's a common one that we're getting, Jay, from a lot of people because, especially my generation, right? There's a certain expectation that things are going to be AI. Does the app score the animal for me? And what they're asking is, does it field judge it for me? And the answer to that is no, not yet. So to answer this question in full detail, this is something that we are proactively working on as an organization. We have a whole team working on it. But the truth is, it's just not very good yet. We have been testing it like crazy, and I know that Jay feels the same way as I do about this. I would so much rather be accurate and credible than be fast. Being fast and bad is worthless to me. And at this time, now technology is changing like crazy. I mean, we live in a world where it's changing at a rate that we've never seen. Could it become more capable? Possibly. And when that time happens, we will incorporate that into the app. We will figure out a way to provide value to you guys with it. But right now, it's a false value if we give it to you. It doesn't actually provide you any benefit. It certainly doesn't make you more accurate. Whereas the product that we have built has been built on the methods and the principles used by the best hunters like Jay. And our guarantee is that if you dive into the app, you will become more accurate. And we want you to be quicker. We want you to be more efficient, but we really want you to feel like you're gaining value and that you feel confident in your guesses and you feel confident in your field judging. And our product does that. So I just wanted to address that AI question because I know we've been getting it a lot. I know I'm personally testing it like crazy, and I use AI in my daily life for a lot of things. And it's just not the capabilities aren't there yet. But when they are, we'll provide that resource to you.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, we have a whole team that's working on the AI functions. We've spent a lot of money on it and a ton of testing, and it's just not there yet. But as it comes available online, and down the pike, it's we're going to be right there in the forefront of it. But I've built a career, 30 years professional guide, of being accurate, being credible. And the last thing I wanted to do is have my name associated with something that wasn't credible and accurate. So that's a great point that you bring up, a question we get a lot. And I think at this point in time, your answer is a great one, Blake. I really appreciate all the work that you've put in on this last 15 months. And, you and I are talking, 8, 10, 12, 15 times a day and constantly working on this. Guys, I appreciate your support listening to this podcast. I'm going to give Blake some of his final last comments or thoughts here. But again, want to hear from you. jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. That's my email. Obviously on my Instagram, jscottoutdoors. Send me a DM. Uh, get this app, guys. I think every hunter that goes in the field, whether you're a whitetail hunter back east, sheep hunter, elk and mule deer hunters, antelope, you name it. I think you guys are going to get a ton of value out of this. And Blake, any last final thoughts, comments, or whatnot?
Yeah, the only thing I forgot to mention is there's a 2 week free trial. So for anybody who wants to get on and try it, there's no investment to get on and give it a whirl. Get on, try the 2 weeks. There's plenty of ways to use the app, even if you don't have a bunch of content, whether it's utilizing public scores or using our practice videos to kind of get a feel for it. And for those of you who do get on, please post your old scores so we can start to develop that database even before hunting season even starts. And I'm sure it's gonna be fun to see everything that gets posted kind of as we roll into this hunting season. We're super excited. It's been a ton of work. We're really excited to finally get it out and show it to you guys and start start having all you guys see this product. So thanks for having me on, Jay. It's always fun to talk about it.
You bet, Blake. God bless you, Blake, and listeners out there. Love having your support. It's been a great run over the last 10 or so years having the podcast, and look forward to bringing this HornScore app to you guys. And just thank you for all your support.
Thanks, guys.